So this is my Drana Kalastria Bloodchief Commander deck, and this is a deck I actually just sort of threw together because I had some extra black cards kicking around, and I thought I'd try it out. But after playing a few games, I discovered that mono black is actually really good in this format, and the reason is that it has access to pretty much everything that a good commander deck needs. It has good mana excel, it's got mass removal, and it's got good card draw, it's got lots of ways to deal with opponents' threats. But most of all, mono black gives you access to all the best tutors in the format, and I think most people will agree that tutoring is a really good ability in Highlander. So this is a deck that eventually evolved into a mono black control style deck. It's not very aggressive, it plans to win with general damage, and basically the plan is to generate a ton of mana, tons of card advantage by drawing cards and destroying your opponent's things, destroying his hand. And eventually you're just going to play Drana and swing for the win with general damage. So first I want to talk about my choice of general, and if you're building a mono black control deck, you've actually got about a dozen really good choices of generals, and usually they're somewhere between really aggressive or really utility. So for example, a good aggressive general would be like Skithrix, who has Infect and he can kill somebody in 3 attack phases. Or a good utility general, you could get Xiaodun the One-Eyed from Portal, or Geth Lord of the Vault, for example. So it really depends on what you want your general to accomplish, if you want it to win the game for you, or if you want it to give you a ton of options. So Drana, I think, is somewhere in between. So let's take a look. She costs 5, but that doesn't really matter, because most of the time I'm not going to cast her on the 5th turn. I'm probably going to cast her really late in the game, when she can swing for the win in 1 hit. As you can see, her ability pumps her. If I have 19 mana, she can swing for 21 general damage in 1 turn, and it's not hard for this deck to get to 19 mana. The other cool thing is that she actually has built-in spot removal, which is, I think, a handy piece of utility, because I don't actually run a ton of single-target spot removal. I mostly rely on sweepers. So it's nice having that ability there. If I need to kill a creature on the board, I can usually cast her and spend mana to drain that creature in 1 turn. So that's my general. And I think she's a pretty good choice. Like I said, right between aggressive and utility. So this is the breakdown of a mono black control deck. I think it's actually kind of pretty simple. It's sort of Black's answer to the Vendilion Clique deck, which is another really simplified control deck. Basically, everything falls into these 6 categories here. We've got cards that destroy things, cards that destroy your opponent's hands, cards that generate lots of mana, cards that fill up your hand, tutors, which as I said before are really important because this is going to give us access to anything we want, and Black has tons of these. And then we've got our random stack of good stuff, which I'll go through later. Then we have lands. So the deck strategy is pretty straightforward. I don't want to make it sound easy, but basically the first few turns you're just going to focus on generating lots of mana to make sure you can do whatever you want, and then you're going to tutor up ways to destroy your opponent's hand so they can't do much, destroy their board, and then find a way to win. The preferred way is by general damage, but this deck can also pull off combo wins, and it can pull off some big mana wins, and you can basically win any way you want. So I'll take you through this strategy. Normally I talk about the mana base last, but I think this time I'm going to do it first, because Cabal Coffers is actually the most important card in this deck, and a lot of the strategies we run are built around this card. This will always be the first card I tutor up and get onto the board, and I have lots of ways to protect this, and I sort of build around this card as much as I can. Basically, it just generates a ton of mana because we're playing mono black, so we have access to a ton of swamps, and we have lots of ways to exploit this mana. So basically, this is the #1 reason to build a mono black deck, because it's just so good, and as you can see, it feeds off of lots of swamps. So we've got 30 basic swamps here. In total, I'm running 41 lands, which is probably above average for a commander deck, but this is a control deck that needs to hit lands every single turn, and it generally needs to get up to about 20 mana before it can win, so I don't think it's overkill to run 41 lands. So now I'll take you through the non-basics. I'm running a total of 11 non-basics. You really want to try and keep those to a minimum, because like I said, Cabal Coffers feeds off of swamps, and most of our other big mana strategies also work with swamps, so I'm only running the ones that are really necessary. These 3 here, these are really good at exploiting Cabal Coffers further, so that's the main reason they're in the deck. Petrified Field is pretty straightforward. It allows me to return lands from my graveyard to play. Cabal Coffers, when it comes out, is going to be the biggest target on the board, so you need ways to bring it back. Black doesn't have a lot of graveyard recursion for lands, so this card is really important in any Coffers strategy. Vesuva, pretty obvious. You can copy Cabal Coffers with it, so generate lots of mana that way. Obviously it can come out as a swamp too, which is useful because you don't want all of your lands to just generate colorless. And Deserted Temple, this will let us untap Coffers and use it again. Here's some more utility lands. This one here, Beseech Who Shelters All. Usually I don't really think this is worth it in most decks, but I think a mono black deck is really good at destroying control decks because you have access to all those cards that destroy your opponent's hands. So this is the kind of card that really helps you back up a Mind Twist or something and take that combo player out of the game quickly. So this is worth a spot in this deck, I think. Valras Stronghold, usually a staple in black. It's kind of out of place in this deck because I'm not really relying on a recursion strategy at all. I've only got about a dozen creatures and some of them can't even sit in the graveyard. However, I do have a couple cards which combo really well with Valraths, so I'm still running this and I think it's worth a spot. And then Bojuka Bog, another black staple. You always need a way to destroy graveyards, and this does just that, and all it does is take up a land slot, so it's worth it. Some more utility lands here. Reliquary Tower. This is actually really good in a deck like this because you're drawing so many cards, and a lot of the time you kind of get screwed by the maximum hand size rule. So this card will let you draw as much as you want off your Necropotence, and not worrying about losing any cards or anything. So I think it's really good in this deck. Strip Mine and Wasteland, these are always important because a lot of the time, the most dangerous card on the board is a land, which is often the case with this deck, and you need to be able to take out those threats. So that's what these are here for, and in fact I've actually got a way to recur these reliably, so they're actually kind of nasty combo piece as well. Last but not least, here we have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and this is actually really important in this deck because one of the problems this deck can encounter is that it'll draw into the Coffers, and then it just won't draw any swamps. Like, I'll pick up a bunch of the non-basic lands, and I'm not able to generate any mana off of those, but then I can tutor up Urborg, and then everything's a swamp, and suddenly my Coffers is even better. So that's what this card is here for, and it works really well. So it's very important for a control deck to be able to destroy cards on the battlefield. So I'm going to take a look at all these. Like I said before, I'm not running very many cards that rely on just single targets. I'm mostly using a lot of sweeper effects, but here are the cards I have that do kill just one card on the battlefield. Go for the Throat, can destroy any non-artifact creature. I think it's pretty good for 2 mana at instant speed, so that's worth a spot. And then these two, Shriekmaw and Duplicant, they also only destroy one card. I think they're worth running though, because you get a creature on the battlefield which is going to help you block, which is really important. And also these are both recurable with Valras Stronghold. So that's the main reason these are in here, because normally I wouldn't play a 5 or 6 mana single target removal spell. It wouldn't be worth it, but these generate card advantage just because they give you a creature. So sticking with the creature removal, now we've got some cards that generate lots of card advantage. Damnation, this one's always a good choice. Destroy all the creatures on the board for just 4 mana, so that's always really efficient, always worth a spot. Mutilate pretty much works the same way. It's especially good in a mono black deck because it means you're probably going to kill everything with this card. Decree of Pain is awesome. For 8 mana, you're generating a ton of card advantage, sweeping the table, filling up your hand, and you've always got this option to cycle if there's some utility creatures you need to kill right away. So this is one of the best sweepers in black. Plague Wind up here. This one's okay. 9 mana is kind of a lot, but this deck doesn't really have trouble generating that much. The good thing about this is that you don't have to sacrifice your own creatures, which is kind of important. Sometimes you actually have utility creatures that you want to keep alive. Most of the time it's not a big deal, but I think this is worth a spot in the deck. And then Reiver Demon. Again, 8 mana is kind of a lot to spend, especially because it doesn't kill artifact or black creatures, but getting a 6/6 flyer on the board isn't bad. It can block enemy dragons, it can threaten to deal damage, so it's really just okay, but I think it's worth running.